Well, good evening, afternoon, and good day, and welcome to the palatial BellvilleSports.com studios in downtown Bellville, Texas, for the 2023 Fall Sports Preview. I'm Steven Jackson, and today I'm joined by Greg Braun, Bruce White, John Marcinkiewicz, Dan Mers, and Josh Brost, football broadcast team, along with Mr. Bruce White of the Bellville Times. And we sure want to thank Bruce for everything he does for us all the time. He has, if you haven't seen it yet, there is a supplement to this week's Bellville Times that is a supplement of the Bellville Brahmas 2023 Road to State. Let me get that off the screen, John. Now you can hold it up. And if you haven't seen that, we highly recommend getting a copy. Go by the Bellville Times or two. Go by and get one at one of the local stores, or go by the Bellville Times and visit with Bruce. But it's very good, and we thank him very much for doing that. Well, we're going to start off with just a review of the 2023 season and the fall sports, basically. And we're going to start off with cross country. Bruce has a few words to say about that.
Yeah, of course, under Coach Sharon Carter, the teams began running back in August, started practice back in the summer, then they competed in district. But the Brahmanettes, they went on to finish 14th in Class 4A Region 4 meet last fall at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. It's a very tough region. All regions are tough, but this one is brutal. The team tallied 354 points there. Just kind of going over how the girls finished at the regional meet. Junior Crosby Stark led with a time of 13 minutes, 46 seconds. She was 62nd overall. Miriam Orduna was 74th at 13:56.95. Freshman Ava Painich, who really had a tough year. She had to tough it out this year because of a leg injury late in the year. But she finished 79th at 14:02. And then we had junior Emma Freermuth was 90th. Senior Andy Eckerman was 113th, and junior Brianna Aguilar was 117th. On the boys' side, sophomore Lane Malinowski qualified for the regional meet for the second straight year. He also made it as a freshman. The boys' team is very young. They were rebuilding. He finished 126th at regional with a time of 20 minutes and 57 seconds. As everybody knows, you advance to regionals based on your performance at the district meet. The Brahmas finished 5th in district as a team. Unfortunately, only the top 3 advance. The Brahmanettes tied for 2nd and advanced as the 3rd seed based on a tiebreaker. Needville was 1st in girls. Sealy was 2nd, tied with Bellville, but Sealy won the tiebreaker on that. At the district meet, Crosby Stark was 3rd. Miriam Orduna was 8th. Andy Eckerman also cracked the top 10. She finished 9th. Ava Painich just missed out with 11th, and Emma Freermuth and Brianna Aguilar were 15th and 20th. On the boys' side, Lane Malinowski was 10th. Sophomore Matthew Wybro was 20th. Sophomore Levi Malinowski was 25th. Senior Cooper Holloman was 26th. And freshman Carlos Aponte, and I really think he's going to make great strides this year, no pun intended. He was 31st with a time of 20 minutes and 41 seconds. Just kind of wrap up the cross country. They'd recently held their athletic fall sports ceremony, and Coach Carter presented several awards to recognize her competitors. For the boys, it was no surprise the MVP was Lane Malinowski. The MVP newcomer was Carlos Aponte. The Fighting Heart went to Cooper Holloman and Matthew Wybro, and the most improved was Levi Malinowski. On the girls' side, Crosby Stark was the MVP. Ava Painich was the MVP newcomer. Andy Eckerman won the Fighting Heart, and the most improved was Emma Freermuth. So overall, it was a pretty successful year for a pretty young cross-country program. The district was pretty competitive, and the girls were able to get back to the regionals, and the boys with Lane Malinowski was able to qualify himself. So hopefully next year it'll build on that.
Well, it sounded like a very successful year. That's a tough sport to be in. Those kids got to get up early every morning and year round, just to compete at the higher level.
That's true. And, sad to say, cross country, you don't get the same recognition you may get in other team sports like volleyball, football, baseball, softball, but the kids work very, very hard on their own. Takes a lot of self-discipline. because you have to do it on your own. It's not just what you do with the team on the practice. You've got to go out and run on your own as well to get, to be one of the best.
And if you have some talent, it might be one of the easier ways to get into college.
It could
Get
be.
a partial scholarship, because when you get to the college level, it's even that much harder to go out and do it on your own. So,
And that may have been my problem. Maybe I just didn't have enough talent.
anyway, that was a great job by the cross country team and coaches. So,
Sure is. Well, thank you, Bruce, for that update on the cross country. Let's move on to Bellville Bremenette volleyball on the year. They ended up with the season record of 38-9. We're 12-0 in District 25 4A. And unfortunately ended their season in the regional quarterfinals with the loss to Wimberley. Lost at 22-25, 20-25, and 23-25. But they had a very successful season. Did not make it to the state, which would have been their fourth year in a row, right, Bruce?
That is
Going to
correct.
the state
Yeah.
championships up, and they did not make it last year, but man, it was so close on there. Of course, head coach is Susan Brewer. Her assistant coaches were Madison Luther, Courtney Phillips, Sydney Lopez, and Maureen Marek. Manager was Lana Schumacher on the year. There's a picture of the team from this past year. And going over some of the stat leaders, and anybody hop in whenever they want to. Leading in kills this year was Sydney McKay with 596. Ella Burnett followed with 222. Assists, Sarah Lishka, 1,417, which is a remarkable number. Aces, Sydney McKay and Sarah Lishka tied. They both had 92 on the season. Diggs, Emmy Nowitzki, 635. Sydney McKay, 592. And leading in blocks this year was Rebecca Luxinger with 100. So they had pretty good results on the year. Any comments on that?
Yeah, it was another good year for the Bremenettes. I would think this team, having the three teams in a row going to state prior to them, there was probably, there has to be some pressure. It's got to build on them a little bit, but I thought they handled it well. They had to mix, they had to replace some key players from the year before. I thought the younger kids mixed in real well with them. Obviously, Sydney McKay, Sarah Lishka. Sydney was first team All-State, Texas Sports Writers Association as an outside hitter. She's going to be an All-Star this coming summer. Sarah Lishka is a setter, second team All-State, Texas Sports Writers Association, a legacy All-Star. So there's, that's two really good talents right there. Sydney will be back. You start looking at the awards from the season. I don't know if y'all want to look at those right now.
Sure.
Yeah, Sydney.
Right ahead,
Sydney McKay was overall MVP, and she was the MVP outside hitter for the team. Sarah Lishka was the MVP setter and server, and that's quite an accomplishment because we had a lot of good servers this year. Rebecca Luxinger was the MVP middle blocker. Samantha Mark was the MVP opposite outside hitter. Emmy Nowitzki was the defensive MVP, and Cadence Lishka was the newcomer of the year for the team.
well, I think with the success that the Bremenettes have year after year after year, you got to have a lot of talent, but we got to give Coach Brewer, Coach Mark, and the rest of that coaching staff a lot of credit that they have been through the ups and downs and rebuilding their teams each and every year, and they seem to bring out the best in their athletes that they have, Greg.
Well, John, I would say, too, that, the thing about Coach Brewer, if this feels like a down year, it's only because she's been to the state tournament all three of the previous years, right? And then, of course, over her history here, I just marvel at the program. I'm not don't know as much about volleyball as you all do, but I can sure recognize a successful program when I see it, and that is a very, very successful program, probably the best in the state.
Yes, 9 state championships, numerous other trips to the state championship, and it's when you say Bellville, volleyball comes to mind across the state of Texas.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you've got, Susan, the continuity of Susan being here for 40 years.
Right.
You can't say that very often in any other school. So she brings a lot to the table, and she gets the most out of her kids.
Yeah, because it's so hard, just one time to get to state, in a 10-year period. She's got 9 state championships, been close on the 10th one how many times, and it's been so much fun to always count on each year. Coach Brewer and her staff is going to have that team prepared.
And she's getting close to the most wins, right?
Yeah, overall
Wins in the nation. So I'm sure she's not going to stop till she gets that number.
And I think another thing that kind of jumped out at me is, and it's kind of, hidden in the background, our volleyball team, I don't believe, has lost the district game in about 3 years. I think 2020 maybe. Mm-hmm. So, that's a pretty impressive streak right there when you start thinking about it.
Oh, yeah. But, we would just look forward to, continued success and wish these young ladies, congratulate them on a very successful year. And, what more can you say about Coach Brewer and her volleyball? But I think what we've come here to enjoy quite a bit more tonight is football.
That's right. Well, let's move on to the 2023 Bellville Brahmas. This was the team's 95th year under Coach Grady Rowe. He's been here 13 seasons with the record of 130 and 37 now after this year. There's a picture of the team up on the screen for 2023. Going to follow up with the picture of the coaches here so we can all see who they were. And one thing that
That's the coaches.
that
There's the coaches.
Coach Rowe always states is he has a lot of coaches that have been here a long time with him.
Yes,
in
just
his
like
career,
volleyball. Yeah.
which helps a lot. And he always mentions that he thanks the community and the parents for letting him coach their kids hard and everything like that. They've been going through these
Boot camp.
right now, and if you see the pictures on that, they're out there in the mud and going around like that. And kids that'll put up with that.
And they enjoy that.
But kids that'll go through that, they're going to be tough. It's a little bit different. That builds that toughness in there.
And there's a lot of discipline taught during that and core values and things like that.
Yes.
And a lot of the guys, the previous guys, Richard Reese and Marcus Smith, I saw them talking about that's what made them be so successful is that boot camp, putting in that work in the spring. It translates to the fall.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do that with us sometime.
No. But you can see it on the field. I mean, Bellville teams are very disciplined.
Yes, they sure are. Overall record this year, 15-1. District record, 6-0. They scored 819 points. Held the opponents to only 137 points, which I believe included 5 shutouts, and continued their 33-game regular season winning streak on that. We're going to get a lot more into it, just some of the highlights that we have here. We'll bring up the rushing stats. That was something that we had a 3-headed monster back there this year. Had 3 backs rush for over 1,000 yards apiece. 2 of them broke the 2,000-yard mark. Sam Renichke, 2,005 yards, 25 touchdowns. Corey and Hood, 1,604 yards and 25 touchdowns. And D.D. Murray, 2,070 yards, 36 touchdowns. Between the 3 of them, 5,679 yards and 86 touchdowns on the year, guys.
That's picking them up and putting them down quite a bit.
So, good gracious. There was a lot going on there. I tell you what, we'll just talk about it. If we want to talk about the preseason and go on from there, then work in the non-district, district, and the playoffs. Go through that. You'll see on the screen here the current or the scores for the season. And let me update this so it will not disappear off the screen. And John, if you want to go ahead and just
well, Stephen, while you're doing that, before we get too far into the individual games, the great rushing attack that Bellville had, we got to give a lot of credit to that offensive line. They were young, inexperienced. They stepped up and did a most phenomenal job to allow Bellville to have that offense that they did. It was great, and they don't get as much recognition as they should probably. The glory numbers are right there in front of you there with all the yards and touchdowns, but without that O-line, man, I tell you what, it was nice to see. And a lot of young ones.
Well, John, we started off the preseason show talking about the question of how the offensive line was there. But I also want to point out, talk about preseason and stuff like that. What type of coaching and, bringing to the table that, we're going into the preseason and our starting quarterback is hurt.
Yeah.
Not going to play. Just think what that did for a coaching aspect of it and
Sure.
how we turned around. Give kudos to Coach Rowe and his assistants and stuff, bringing the team together and come out with a second-string quarterback and have a phenomenal run.
Yeah,
that-
up.
Coaching on this was just unbelievable.
Yeah, now Leshner did have a few mop-up snaps the year before, but my gosh, what a great job he ended up filling in and doing. It was you have to almost redo your offense when you change quarterbacks, and it was smooth transition.
That was one of my preseason questions was, what was that center quarterback exchange going to be and how sharp was it going to be? And, I think this was the sharpest exchange we've had between quarterback center, in the years we've been doing it. It just shows, Leshner and Andrade, they were on the same page, and they had to put, extra work in throughout the season.
And one thing about Leshner, we should not have been surprised if you'll remember in the Columbia game in the previous year, he came in a quarterback injury situation and won that game for us.
Right.
And was pressed into duty, responded, and then, of course, took it to a new level this year. In all the years I've been watching, I've never seen anyone at the quarterback spot be more fluid in handling the ball and disguising the play. I don't know how many times, John, you and I, we would call the wrong back, and it was all about the decision.
Her Nikki's 20 yards down the field.
Down the field. So that's an admission against interest. But I really like what you said, Greg, about admitting that we don't know very much, because we were really down and questioning the offensive line. And again, the coaching staff, give them credit. They plucked these young men into the line, put them into duty, and more than one, right? At least 4 or so that really saw substantial time above and beyond Ja'Cory.
And how often do people criticize the coaching? Everybody's armchair quarterback, but the coaches did an exceptional job. And like I said, top down, they all did a great job.
Yes, they did.
Yep.
From the offense, defense, special teams, it was just amazing what they were able to accomplish this year. Steven, did you want to go game by game or?
However y'all want to work.
No, I was giving you time to make sure we didn't lose anything.
Well, it's up there. The non-district games: LaGrange, Stafford, Navasota, and Cameron. Guys, like we were saying when we started off, I don't think we really knew how good that we were.
Yeah.
And I was trying to, in my mind, put together the time when I realized that we're pretty damn good.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know if it was a preseason because we were still working some things out, getting things going. New offensive line, like we say, getting everybody used to it. But LaGrange, we put up the points, 68-20. Stafford, always a tough game, 38-0. Navasota, always tough, and we were down at halftime on that one, 3-0.
Yes.
If I remember. We came back, scored 31 points in the second half, shut them out. And Cameron, that was a back and forth game. Ended up winning that one 56-22.
And Stephen, the Navasota game was a big one for me, where it was like, okay, I realized, we were good. A lot of the Navasota game kind of looked like Madisonville, the year before. We couldn't get nothing going, but the difference was they stuck with it in that second half. I don't remember if it was 28 points they scored. Mm-hmm. But they, when they did that to Navasota, that's when I kind of realized it was a different team.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, Josh. And again, the coaches came out and made some adjustments. Mm-hmm. But I thought at that point, you saw the senior leadership of the team come up and said, "Look, we're better than they are. We're going to win this game." And they took it and just ran with it.
I was a latecomer, and for this reason, I just didn't know that our district was that strong. And so, we're blowing teams away, but it didn't look to me like there was a lot of other team strength in the district. And it wasn't until Madisonville that it dawned on me this team is really, really good, because they obliterated the very same team that had defeated them the year before, right?
Yeah, well, for me, I knew we were good. I just didn't know how good was the Cameron game.
Yeah.
At that point, we've got 3 guys at 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
And I'm going like, man, that's really doing something. You get into district, and it's like, I don't know, they just turned on a whole new another level.
Well, John, and you also have to factor in some of those games, the first string was not playing.
No,
In the second half.
Right. They would get maybe a series or two in the second
Look at
half.
the defense. They're looking at some of those points that were scored. Well, that wasn't against the first string defense.
No.
And the other thing you have to look at too, especially in district play, there was a lot of running clock in the second half, and some of those 63s could have been 93s, or more. And I think a lot about football is about matchups. But we were, like John had pointed out, we were so deceptive offensively this year. Kids did such a good job of blocking. We ran the ball. We ran the offense, the slot team, about as well as you can run it. Yeah. I think this past year. And then, of course, I thought our defense was going to be top notch. I really, really did believe that. I think shutting out Stafford, emphasized that for me anyway. But then, just how they made plays. And when you're forcing a lot of 3 and outs, or sometimes not even 3 and outs, sometimes 1 and outs, your offense gets a lot more opportunities. And that gave them a chance to kind of work on some things and gel as they went downfield. Now, as the season went on, we scored more and more on explosive plays and 2 or 3 play series. But I think we were very demoralizing to opponents. I think, and we saw that all the way through, even into the playoffs.
You talk about explosive plays. You remember in the LaGrange game? It was 1 play touchdown, 2 plays touchdown, defensive touchdown. I mean, that game got, was it 42-0 in the first quarter? I mean, talk about explosive.
Yeah.
In that great piece that we've talked about that Bruce put together, I was able to finally come to an appreciation for just how good this defense was. They had 7 shutouts, including the playoffs. No team in the playoffs until 4 teams were remaining scored more than a touchdown in any one game. And that's just remarkable. You're talking some really good
dominance.
Teams. Right. You're talking the top 16, the top 8, and they are being either shut out or held to 1 TD. And
look what they did to Silsby. We know Silsby was really, really good.
Really good.
We know that. Yeah. And for them to do that to that team, an undefeated team, I believe at the time. Just very impressive. I think, the other thing on the playoffs that jumps out at me is I think, West Orange Stark was kind of our measuring stick, and we had a long ways to go to be West Orange Stark, and we've kind of flipped the card on that. Yep. Now they've got to say, well, what we got to do to be like Bellville, because we completely turned that around. Yeah. And they still got dudes, they still got the athletes, but Bellville was just phenomenal that night. They were phenomenal all the way through.
Well, I was going to bring up, John, let maybe everybody kind of think about what their play of the year was, and I'll start it off with mine. And I'm sure because some of y'all probably want this play as well, but the play that stood out to me was when we were playing Sealy, and when DJ stripped that ball and ran and had a touchdown. But it wasn't the fact that he stripped the ball and ran for the touchdown. It was about, 60 yards or so. It's Coach Rowe down the sideline, headset flying and all this stuff, and he runs up and he does a chest bump to DJ, and DJ just obliterates Coach Rowe. At that point, the stands were going crazy, and what happened? DJ's on the extra point team.
Yeah.
Right.
DJ doesn't think anything of it. He goes out and he does his job. Yeah. And at that point, I thought, wow, this is a phenomenal season that we're having. And then he turned around and did the same thing the first possession of the Wimberley game. Mm-hmm. Yep. And everybody in the stands were like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
So that was the one type play, but there was 2 of them in the season for me.
Well, and I think a lot of what you were talking about with DJ, does that, and he goes back for the kickoff. Or you see DD or Sam, where they score a touchdown, they just kind of give the ball to the official and going back to sideline. A lot of that, I think, comes from the boot camp and what the coaches instill a discipline on the team, and it's just you're so proud to be a part of that.
Let me put it on Josh. What do you remember, Josh, as a standout play?
The one against Wimberley, stealing that ball from him, I think the first or second play, and, DJ stripping it and then outrunning their stud quarterback to the end zone. And, without that play, I don't think we win that game, but it set the tone for us, and it also kind of set the tone for Wimberley that game, that Stover is touching the ball every play after that and didn't really hand it off any.
Dan?
Well, for me, it's same game, same name, Stover. But it was the team stop on the 2-point conversion. That was the team stop, just by that much. But he was hit by 3 Bulls, as I recall, wrapped him up.
Yes.
Mays got there at the end to seal the deal. but he had two guys, and everybody in the stadium knew he was getting the ball. And there had been nothing up until that point that showed that we could necessarily
That's right.
stop him
That's right.
for 2 yards or less,
Yep.
right? 3 yards
Yep.
or less.
John?
Well, you know, I had the paper turned to the Sealy game because I was going to talk about that's when I really think the big win over Sealy is when the team had the confidence that they were really that good and brought that out for the rest of the season. Of course, that 63-yard strip and run was the big play that really stands out to me. You know, more so than anything else. And I guess for me, one thing that I might want to say is not one certain play, but a culmination of things that went on in the season that that kid, Fernando Carjales, how he was nails.
Yeah.
I mean, extra point after extra point. You had a few high snaps, low snaps, or whatever, and some of his kicks may not have cleared upright in the fashion that you'd like to see, but they made them.
Yeah.
I mean, what the special teams were able to do with the extra points, I thought was really special. Since you stole my.
Bruce, how about you?
Yeah, mine will be a little bit different, and shamefully I can't remember the exact game it was, but we ran a picture in the paper of this, and it just epitomized to me what our team was. D.D. Murray's running with the ball, and we've got Ja'Cory Lewis downfield blocking, and Sam blocking, and Sam Ranischke, the running back, and they're both peeling off to hit defensive backs. And the one that Ja'Cory Lewis is about to hit, you can literally see the fear in that kid's eyes. But also you could tell that Sam and him were both making beelines for this guy way downfield. Yeah. And you remember now, Ja'Cory Lewis is an offensive lineman. Now he's probably 30 yards downfield about to wipe somebody out. Sam just gives his body up for everybody. You know, remember the touchdown he scored without his helmet? And he scored same game he scored one without a shoe or something. You know, I mean, those kind of plays like that really stood out for me to what those guys were doing that downfield and taking care of things. So the other guy, the running back, can go down and score. But Sam, man, what a tremendous season he had. And you know, but that play, and I wish I could remember the game where he's turning off to hit one guy and Ja'Cory's going straight onto another guy, and you could tell those guys wanted no parts of either one of these Bramers.
Stephen, how about you? Oh, go ahead, Dan.
I was going to say, Bruce, I thought you captured it in that fine piece you've done here. Coach Rowe paying the ultimate compliment to Sam Ranischke when he described Stover as a Sam Ranischke playing quarterback.
Yeah.
And that kid, I enjoyed watching that game. Probably the most enjoyable high school football game I've ever watched, just because it was so competitive, and the players, you could name 3 or 4 on both teams that were just that good. It
That
was
level of play.
Yeah. Level of play. Yeah.
And Greg, I might have to change mine. One of my other ones.
Get Stephen before you go back. We can come back to
You might take Stevens.
Stephen.
He's
He's
studying.
right.
I'm going back, and I think it was Silsby on the opening kickoff.
West Orange start.
Was it?
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about when the ball dribbled past, and Devontae Keys recovered
Yeah,
it down there.
West Orange.
West Orange start.
First kickoff.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, when that started, you know, it was right there. I mean, you know, we always had, like you said, West Orange Stark as our nemesis. Just killed us in the past. Last year we beat them, and this year it was a big game again. And with that play coming up like that, where he was watching and the ball just bounced, they didn't pick it up. We had the ball on the 2-yard line or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I just want to say the entire Silsby game, you know, because they were up there ranked, and you know had the big quarterback and the linebacker, and
The wide receiver.
Raylon Miller,
Yeah.
wide receiver, and I think he caught maybe 1 or 2 passes the entire game. I mean, our defensive line, Richardson and them were on that quarterback. I mean, the whole game.
And you said it too in that Silsby game. Deontay Keys had that big play on the first play at the West Orange Start game. Then the Silsby game, he had the block punt. And I think we scored to go up 21-0 or 14-0, but it was a big play, you know, early in that game to really get the momentum on our side.
And
Well,
safeties, I think we had that game too.
Yeah.
Two safeties.
2 safeties, of course.
On that one?
Yeah.
I mean, God gracious, God.
What a defense.
How many times you get 2 safeties in one game?
Yeah.
But remember, our defense actually outscored our district opponents this year.
Yes.
Yeah,
Phenomenal. What, you know, another play, I thought one of you would mention this. How about Dede catching the interception in the end zone against, I don't know, was it Wimberley?
Wimberley.
And then turned around the next offensive play, he took it to the house.
Yeah.
And then another one I remember, I think it was Jasper, was, remember that game? It was a real close game. We came out of halftime. It's like, we had the opening possession because we deferred for the second half, and we took it down there, and I think it was a pass to the tight end. That
Your favorite
again,
play.
it was like no one was thinking that we were ever going to pass.
Right.
And he was wide open, and I was holding my breath. It's all he had to catch it. Please catch it. Please catch it. But there were so many of those plays this year that we could talk about that just stand out in my mind is how good we executed and how good the team played.
And also the timing of the offensive coordinator calling the plays. I mean, they were just every play he called was dang near perfect all season long. When he passed the ball, it was at the perfect time and caught him off guard every time.
Yeah, and before I forget this, guys, I mentioned this. I know it was I think it was when we were. It might have been the second playoff game. We were doing kind of a wrap up, and it's kind of what do you feel about the team, how we played today? And I said team. Because you looked at this and what everybody did. It wasn't one star. You had the defense step up. You had the offense step up. You had the special teams step up. The coaches stepped up. I said, this was a team. You don't see this often.
Right. No.
We have a team. And then in Bruce's document here, how many of the kids talked about team?
Yep.
Yeah.
How that Coach Rowe instilled that in those players. That this is team. This is not individual. This is team.
That says a lot when you have two guys rush for over 2,000 and another one for 1,600 yards, and as good as they were, they weren't the focus. It was the team. The team.
And one of those, there was a 3-game stretch, and I think it was Navasota, somebody in Lamarck. Landon Schumann had an offensive touchdown, a defensive touchdown.
Yep.
And then the next game, Kamon Jones had a touchdown. And then the third game, I forget who it was, but it was a guy who normally doesn't touch the ball, and it was
Hutchinson, I believe.
Yeah, Hutchinson. There was 3 games that you had guys that weren't the normal touchdown guys scoring touchdown. It just shows there's so many guys on this team that are dangerous.
Yeah, it was great.
In the most underused team, our group of guys on the team this year.
Wide receivers.
No.
Kick return.
Kick return. They got maybe one chance a game when we talk about how many shutouts we had.
Yeah.
But you know what? They did a great job.
They did.
Yeah.
And we had, like I said, we had a kickoff return.
Yeah.
So, again, it was a team effort.
And I got to go opposite from that, the kickoff team. Last year, 2022, there was some times where man, they gave up some longer ones. And, this year didn't give up a kick return touchdown. I don't think gave up one, past half field. They were nails. And, they had probably 7-8 kickoffs a game for them to get a chance to return it. But Grajales and Keys was a Becerra, them just running down there. They were madmen. It set the tone for the defense when they came out there.
Well, even on punt team.
punt
the
team
field
same.
position was huge for us.
Yeah.
This year. One team never even got across the 50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In-
that's-
in
When does
the
that
playoffs.
happen?
Yeah,
in the
exactly.
playoffs. That was a playoff team.
Yeah.
And one thing, Connor Gaines. Again, in the preseason show, we're talking about who steps in as the punter. Mm-hmm. Well, Connor Gaines stepped
Oh, he
in
did
and
great.
stepped in wonderfully. Now,
great
didn't
job.
have to. There was a period where we were thinking, well, we don't
Yeah,
know.
a couple games we didn't punt, Dan.
But once he really did well.
Yeah.
Really did
And
well.
he had a stretch in the playoffs where it was, he didn't punt all year long. We didn't really know how good he was, but he put it down there inside the 20, I think, 2 games on the playoff streak. And it really, once again, set the tone for our defense.
Yep, flipping field position. And speaking of that defense, I think I counted 8 defensive touchdowns is what I came up with. The 2 takeaways for TDs on the fumble recoveries and 6 pick sixes. What I I may be
phenomenal.
off
Just
by 1 or
phenomenal.
2, but it was
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the opposite way, when Bell would take the ball over, they didn't score. You're giving Bellville a short field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that takes away from some of the numbers that the backs could have accumulated, not getting to play, 4 quarters and how many touches.
Yeah. I think that LaGrange game, both of our possessions started within the 10-yard line on their side. It was, we had 12 yards rushing and 14 points on the board.
Well, we always talk a little bit about trying to pad stats. Well, we didn't have a chance to pad stats.
Scoring, but other than that, no. And was that the game, 42 points in the first quarter, I believe?
42.
That was LaGrange, yeah.
Yeah, wow.
To start the year off with 42 points.
And another thing I like the way we responded against Royal. You know, we hadn't been behind all year. And remember, Royal goes down the field and they scored, and I think it just made them mad. But you know, we came back and beat them 45-10. You know, it was like, you know, it was just amazing to be able to do that, because I thought, okay, we might have a little tussle here with them. But, you know, Bellville's defense took charge, took over, everything settled in, offense did their thing. And I kind of thought Royal was the best team we played until we got into the deeper rounds in the playoffs. They played us better than anybody.
Yeah.
They're the only team to score on us in district.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than our scrimmage against Columbus, who else do you look at on there until you get into the playoffs?
You know, and Dan's point a while ago is our district weak?
Are we that
Are
good?
we that good? You know, and what we found out was, well, we had some struggle in our district. Our district wasn't that weak.
Yeah.
No, that's right.
Yeah, because I forget the scores, but Sealy gave, was it Jasper a fit in the first round? Yeah, Sealy gave Jasper a fit in the first round, and then then we turned around and played Jasper, and they were the best team we played to that point until we played, you know, Wimberley and Gilmore. But yeah, no, they gave that district some fits in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say, you know, when you got to the regional or to the state quarterfinals, semifinals, finals, you know, that was that ladder, you know, that you climb, that you have to go to get there. You know, I think, you know, beating Jasper was huge. They were, you know, they tried to match us up physically early. They were the first team to try to go toe to toe with us, really, because everybody else tried to finesse us. And they did for a while, you know, but, you know, we just overwhelmed them. And then, of course, in Wimberley, they went toe-to-toe with us the whole game.
Yeah.
That was, you know, they did go toe-to-toe, Bruce, 10-7 at the half. Bellville gets the second half kickoff and then does what good teams do. They took it and drove it down, scored 17-7, never looked back.
Never looked back.
Yeah, but like Josh mentioned earlier, that return by DJ made a difference in that game by scoring that defensive touchdown. Made it because we were trading possessions with Wimberley, and that made the difference in that game.
Yeah.
And then the Jasper game, I was reading it in Bruce's paper. I think they scored 7. We scored 7. They got the ball back, and DJ had a 4-yard tackle for loss and then a 5-yard sack. And they punt. We get the ball back and then never look back from there.
Just going over some defensive stats, but I don't have a screen for that or anything to put up. But just some numbers on some of the players. Gaines, 180 tackles. Jake Shepard, 136. Sanders, 115. Richardson, 107. Hutchinson, 100. Mays, 94. Kunkel, 92. All over 90 on that. Tackles for loss, we talked about that. On the season, 74 tackles for loss on there. And sacks, we had 44 sacks on the year, with Sanders having 15, Richardson having 15, Mays 5, McKee 3. C.J. McKee, he was a guy that stepped in on the defensive line. Never called his name that much, but he did. But
he did his job.
He did his job. He absorbed the blockers and let the other guys run free.
And he got in there and got him a sack against Stafford, if I remember right.
And I think the Wimberley game and the Jasper game, I think he's when we called his name the most. He was in on the stop on the Wimberley game on that 2-point play. And I want to say the Silsby game or Jasper game, he had a couple of a sack or two in those games. And no, he was definitely the hole clogger.
I can tell you one thing: if you don't have the defensive linemen doing their job, the linebackers are not going to make the tackles that they do.
That's
As
true.
you mentioned all those tackles that the linebackers made. You got to look at the defensive line that are getting double teamed. They're not getting that secondary block on the offensive line's perspective. That's why we did that. But our defense was dominant through those first 10 games.
Yeah.
It was just unbelievable.
How many tackles for a loss did you say?
74.
So that's what, about over 4 a game on average, and
4 games, yes.
that's pretty impressive.
And looking at the other on our defensive backs, our interceptions is what we're looking at. Kunkel had 5, Hutchinson had 3, Jones had 3, Gakey had 3, and Murray had 3. Gaines had 2, ran a big one back for a touchdown, and Schumann had 1. He ran that one back for a touchdown. We returned 401 yards in interception returns on 20 interceptions.
Yeah,
that's 20 I don't have all the touchdowns we ran it back for, but
20 yards per.
that was something else. People on the teams trying to pass against us.
Well, they couldn't run, so we knew that, and they and some of them didn't want to run, but they were everybody we played was pretty much one dimensional, most of the year.
Yes, yeah.
The best defense against the pass offense is a rush, defensive rush. When you don't have time as a quarterback to set your feet or even have a prayer to get the ball off on time, you can't throw the ball. And if your offense is a spread offense, and
You can't.
you can't do it, it shuts down.
That describes that
Good point.
Silsby game perfect because, coming in, Silsby had all the deep weapons they could have. They had a quarterback that could get the ball there. DJ sacks him in the first quarter or so, and then, he could never get the ball within anywhere to his receivers. It was just a prayer he was throwing up, and, that just shows that pass rush of Bellville. It really changed their offense.
I think a lot of these teams we played that weren't familiar with us, they really didn't understand. They knew what our numbers looked like. I don't think they really understood how fast, how physical, how good we were up front until they played us. I don't think their linemen believed that. You'd see some of the comments before the game by some of the opposing teams, and they weren't too concerned about Bellville. I remember several playoff games where we're doing our pregame practices, and the other teams are going to the locker room, and they're pointing and barking at us and laughing and waving and dancing and all that, and we're just taking care of business in our workout, and the game starts, and they get hit a few times in the mouth, and I think it finally dawns on them and said, Belleville's going to hit us, and they're going to just keep hitting us. I don't really like that this much. Football's no longer fun, and we saw that on both sides of the ball, though. But I don't think teams realized how good our defensive front was until they lined up against us. I truly believe that.
And you could see that in the playoffs, Bruce, I think the most. We went through district like nothing. Teams just gave up. The clock started running.
Yeah.
How many times? But we get the playoffs, and we started after the second or third series, they knew
They were
they were
whipped.
in for a game, and they were whipped.
Yeah.
That was it. We dominated those teams.
Jasper
basically.
was the first team we really played that responded, but like I said, kind of the same way the Navasota game. Once the second half hit, it was like, okay, they put all the fight they could up in the first quarter, and that was it.
Yeah, was it Jasper, the team that had the coach on the little scooter?
I believe so.
Yeah. And
Or
Silsby.
you could see the frustration in the coaches. Like you say, they were trying to run their offense, but they couldn't execute. And the frustration,
But
time after time after time, we were just shutting them down.
it makes sense, though, 'cause I remember 3 years ago, Bruce talking about DJ Sanders as a freshman. He said the coach told him they had to sit him out because he was just disrupting everything at practice. They couldn't get anything off, and you see it now. Now it makes sense because you have a 3-man rush or a 4-man rush, and he's disrupting the whole play without even having a blitz on his, helping him.
Yeah, but there were others on that defensive
Yeah,
line
there
that
was.
stepped up because, like you say, most of the time he was getting double teamed.
Yeah.
But Corey Richardson was just a beast.
Oh, and
he was the strongest young man I've seen. The leverage he would get underneath the offensive lineman and just bull rush back to the quarterback. It was just unbelievable.
And then you had Gavin Mays
And
on the other
Mays,
end,
yeah.
and then Deontay Keys would come in. You had other guys that were up there able to make plays too. It was fun to watch. It was just amazing to see a defensive front like that just controlled. Probably not since the Steven Jackson days, I would say.
That's a good point, Bruce. 'Cause look at the gray hair at this table, except for Josh. I hope we get to see another dominant performance like this again.
Well, we've talked so much about the team play and everything. We set a lot of records this year. It's been, it was great individual and great team, and they've all set lots of records, Bruce.
Records, you said records, John?
Records. Albums,
Here
LPs,
we go.
45.
Thanks to Mr. Bruce White of the Belleville Times here. And if you want to see these, you got to buy you a Belleville Times this week and get that supplement. Let me turn the duration off on this too so we can look at it a minute. Apologize for that. Here we go. Start off. And I have to have 2 slides for all the records
I
that
love
I
it.
brought. Most wins in a season, 15. Most consecutive wins, 15. Consecutive regular season wins, 33, and that's still going.
Still counting.
That's not been set yet. Consecutive district wins, 20.
Still going.
That's still ongoing. Most points scored, 819 points.
Think about that one a second.
Think about that. 819 points. It's crazy.
Yeah, it could have been a lot more.
That was a lot of talking on your part, John.
Yeah.
No, they scored so quick. They like Dan.
Well, I think going back to that, Dan came up one time how many one-play drives we had.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was like 20 or something. I don't know. But I think Bruce went back and found that for you, Dan. But,
Yeah, he did.
51.2 points per game on there. Most games played, 16. Most first downs, 285.
And again, a lot of this is with that running clock.
Yes.
And
It could have been more.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Make
could have been a lot more.
A projection if we played the full 4 quarters, what it would have been. I mean, it's, we would have probably broke double the amount of records on that.
And what stands out to me about this is in the era of spread offenses, high-scoring, passing-oriented offenses, you'd expect these kind of numbers. On a team that threw the ball 30 times all year, amazing.
Yeah.
How many coaches would love to have your running back before the season will say he's going to gain 1,600 yards? Well, that's the third guy. He did a lot of other things, and I don't mean to diminish Corey's efforts, but that's just the kind of team this was.
Well, speaking of Corey, how many times did we see him carry people down the field?
Yeah.
They could not get the guy on the ground.
Oh,
yeah, I always called him
7,
the
8,
pile
9,
mover.
10 yards, just
Yeah.
three
Or-
guys holding, hanging on his back.
Or you go to Sam Hernitke. There was one game, Dede Murray had 5 touchdowns in the game. But if you go watch all those highlights, Hernitke was the lead blocker, making the key block for his other running back on all those. And it's not in the stat sheet, but it's they all talked about it. It's all one that
It's
nobody.
team.
Yeah.
I would venture to say that Sam had the most touchdowns called back. I mean, he had some big runs, and we didn't have that many penalties.
Against
But it
Jasper.
seemed like if we had penalty, it was on a big Hernitke run.
It was.
That's not all the records.
No, we're going to go to the second slide here. Most yards rushing in a season, 6,185. And you just talked about all our three backs, our three-headed monster. Best per game rushing average, 386 yards per game.
And that would have been more, obviously.
That would have been more. Fewest interceptions.
Thrown.
Thrown. That's right. Zach Leshner was 21 out of 30 for 421 yards, 9 touchdowns on that. Quarterback rating, 138.2. Can't get better than that.
Yeah, pass.
Best pass completion percentage goes along with that, 65.6. Most total yards in the season, 6,606. Lowest per game rushing allowed. We've talked about our defense, what they've done, was 55.8. And most extra points, 109. Fernando Grajales, 127 points for a kicker.
Yes, for a kicker,
For a kicker.
high school kicker.
That was more than you, I'm assuming, right?
More than me, a whole lot more than ours. He was 109 of 113.
That's a career for a lot of kickers. And that's just one
Yes.
season.
One
Yes.
season, yeah.
Made 6 field goals on there, 127 total points. That's added on to that. That's extra points. It was 109, but he had 127 total points on the season.
Very reliable. And then on the defense there, the defense would have set quite a few records this year. That 1938 team, kept them from that.
Yes.
That 12-0, 12-0, right? 1938.
All shutouts.
All shutouts but one.
Yes. Total points, since we talked about points, Dede Murray, 228. Sam Hernitke, 150. Corian Hood, 150. Fernando Grajales, 127 total points.
So that many individuals over 100, that's pretty good.
Yes. Look
Yeah.
at that.
Well, you can give out a lot of individual awards, Bruce, with all these, accolades that we've talked about. And I want you to tell us a little about it.
Oh, yeah. Of course, we're doing all state voting now for the Texas Sports Writers Association. We have some kids up for that. The Padilla All-State poll just came out. That's coaches, select those, and we did quite well on that, as you might imagine. And I'll just kind of go over the names here. First team centers, Ozzie Andrade, senior. First team running backs, both Dede Murray and Sam Hernitke. Dede's a junior, Sam's a senior. In the defensive line, of course, DJ Sanders and Corey Richardson, as you would expect. Our linebackers, we had 2, Jake Shepard and Connor Gaines. And then, of course, Hunter Kunkel, who I think was the quarterback of the defense, he was all Padilla, all state defensive back. And then on the second team, you had Gavin Mays at tight end and the big sophomore Ja'Cory Lewis at offensive line guard. And then another one I want to point out is our defensive coordinator, Justin Stevens. He was defensive coordinator of the year as announced by the Texas Football Magazine, I believe.
Yes. As you look at that on our defense, he got the recognition for that.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, he did.
Very deserved. And then, of course, the team had their the sports ceremony was held a couple of weeks back, and the team votes on the awards to give to their teammates. The overall MVP was DJ Sanders. The 3 award, which is a special one, that's number 3 award, which was won by Zach Hood, who was tragically killed in a vehicle accident several years back. Hunter Kunkel received that award. The MVP defensive player was Connor Gaines, the linebacker. MVP offense was D.D. Murray. Sam Renischke was a fighting heart. I can't think of a better selection than that. And then the core values went to Corey Richardson, which another good one.
Yes.
But we had so many. We've all called it a team. There were so many of them that played so well, but you can't give an award to everybody, right? But they were all part of the success, and I think the ones that won these awards know it was a whole team that helped them get what they got, and I'm just very, very impressive.
Bruce, the common theme there to me that stands out, and I don't know them as well as you do, probably given all the coverage you do provide, but leadership. Every one of those young men you named at one time or another has demonstrated a leadership trait.
True.
And every team, no matter how good you are, it's got to have leaders, because that's just what you have to be successful. Good leaders.
And one of the things that jumped out at me and I wrote about this, but at the state championship game, we get beat 28-26 to Gilmer. The interview room is right next to the winning Gilmer locker room. So, the kids are in there. You can hear Gilmer fans, and rightfully so, cheering and happy and hooting and hollering. Connor Gaines and, Sam Renischke were being interviewed. And what was very impressive to me is that, yes, they talked about the game, but a lot of the media wanted to know, tell us about your core values. Tell us about what makes Bellville different. Why do you do what you... That meant more to me probably than anything else I heard that day. And I was so impressed by that and how those young men handled that. And, I know how I would have handled it, and it would not have been that good and that classy. And I was just so impressed. And one thing and I know this is a little bitty thing, but it jumped out to me when Coach Rowe and Sam and Connor got through with the interviews, and, they thanked everybody. They got up, pushed their chairs under the table, and walked out of the room. That's a little thing, means a lot.
That you do that.
Means a lot. That's Bellville.
Yes.
Yeah. No,
And if you want to watch that interview, it's on BellvilleSports.com, the whole thing. You can watch it. So just go on there and search for that. You'll find that interview if you want to watch it.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it yet. So.
Yeah.
Well, a question for Stephen and Bruce now. It's so impressive to see these postseason awards. Padilla poll with the coaches voting on it. Would that be more accurate than the Texas sports writers?
No comment.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm not taking away. I mean, these are very much deserving. They truly are. I don't know how they do their voting, and I'm sure it's really good. I'm just so pleased for these guys, all of them, and there's not a name on here that I don't think deserves looking at being an all-state candidate. They're all very, very worthy of it. And that just shows you how good Bellville was this year, to have this many kids that were that highly thought of by coaches across the state of Texas.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, we about to wrap this up.
Almost. I just want to say that the fan support
Yeah.
Good point.
was great. In the playoff games, I mean, we filled the stands. Basically, when you went to the state championship game at AT&T Stadium, how much red was in the stands? And that wasn't just current people; that was past people that came from across the state,
Across the nation, we had several of them.
come back home and watch.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of people, the classes get together, the class of 2010, the different people that, haven't been to a Belleville game in years. And all of a sudden, they're talking on social media, coordinating almost, a class reunion almost. It was, the Coach Rowe and that team, they really brought Belleville together there in December.
It was very nice for about a 4 to 6 week period that this community was all on the same page. Yep. When people would come into our office, all they wanted, how are the Bramers going to do this week? Well, I think they're pretty good. I'd hear these comments. Nobody was talking about politics or the roads or, the school bond or any of those kind of things. Everybody was all talking about the Bramers. So if anybody tells you high school sports doesn't mean anything, they're wrong. It means a lot.
This team was so unique. It tickled me how many people that I know through work relationships that started casually watching them, that were avid Bellville Brahma fans by the playoffs. They were
tribute to Dan on that.
It wasn't anything I did.
It was
a team that just they too wanted to know what is going on with this group of young people. I mean, of all the troubled things we hear in the country, I mean, these young men are standing up and doing it right. Yeah. And anyway,
Dan, you got 10 or 20 people from across the nation tuning in every week to follow Bellville.
We talked about after the games on the ride home when we had road games of how exciting the season's been and how much fun it has been to call these games. And of course, I appreciate the opportunity, John, to participate. But I also want to point out there we had our stumbles throughout the year. We appreciate Sean Jackson for pulling in, bringing in the P8 controller Wharton. For us, for Wharton. Stephen for calling in when he was on vacation. We couldn't figure out which button to push. We do appreciate that. I certainly appreciate that, Stephen. And again, Bruce White, thank you for the stats during the middle of the game. Absolutely. We couldn't do that without you. And to bring a point to matter, we were at one of the playoff games. I think it was Wimberley. And they said, well, we don't ever get stats during the game. And it's like, well, we do. Yeah. So thank you, Bruce. We appreciate that. Yeah.
We even shared it with them.
Yeah,
that was nice.
Up on the window so they could see it next door.
And I want to pile on just a little bit and say this, that, John and Stephen, thanks, Greg, Josh, for putting up with me, but mainly for letting it happen. I mean, you guys know when we get to the stadium, I always ask John after we carried everything up, is there anything I can do to help? And he says, no, you just go sit out there, stay out of the way. But it has been so much fun. My wife's still asking me, when is the bucket list run over? And all I told her today was, baby, not yet.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to encourage everybody that hasn't got one, or if you got one, get another copy of the paper with this insert. It is the most amazing thing. Definitely a keepsake that I can't wait to put in my building. For those of you who've been out there,
there's more information and stats and facts in that piece of paper, in that 10-page paper that I've ever seen on any paper. It's
32 pages.
Everything you need to know about the Bellville Brahmas is in there.
Yep, and aptly named, right?
No, Brandon, road to state. And it might be something that, I got it, No, get one, keep one, because Stephen, it's been a long time this year, since the prior time we'd been to state.
That's it.
Yeah, you still had, dark hair when the last time we went.
I sure did. I sure did. There it is on the screen, Bellville Times, right there.
So
get in touch
you
with
can
Bruce.
Call and get you an extra copy, save it, keep it, and it'll be something you'll enjoy looking back on and reminiscing or catching us with our mistakes.
This will make it easier for Stephen when he writes the retrospect in about 20 years. You can just pull this out.
and be accurate, right? And speaking of which, the very last thing I will say is that this team now gets to join the other legends of Bellville football. The 1938 team, the 1960 team, the 1977 team. You, members of this 2023 team, take your place and do it proudly.
There you
go. Speaking of that, I know, Stephen, you got one more thing. I'm probably go ahead, Stephen.
And if you want to relive the season, all the archive video, not video, but audio of all the games is on BellvilleSports.com. Every game is on there, the full game. We're going to put this on there to finish it up. We got the preseason show on there. We'll put the final season show on there. But every football game we played, the audio is on there, so you can go back and listen to it.
We probably should have listened to those before we did this. Hey, we covered lots of great things that happened with the cross country, volleyball, football, and I asked Bruce to share one more thing that happened since we last met. The Hall of Fame. We've had some.
The Hall of Honor.
Hall of
Yeah.
Honor.
Yeah, we did. And me and Stephen welcome you to our committee, and we're glad you're part of it. Yes, we met, I guess, in mid-January, I believe it was, and we had our induction meeting, and we are proud to announce that our new inductees are going to be Nick Mosley, star basketball player here, played for U of H, playing over in Germany. Harold Runnels, Louis, as we knew him back in the day, played All-Stater here in football, played at Stephen F. Austin, had a time with the Green Bay Packers, I believe, as a tryout over there. And we also have inducted, now why am I drawing a blank, Stephen? No, I'm teasing. I was looking at Travis Vorncall, and Travis actually played under Coach Grady Rowe football. Went and played college ball over, I believe it's West Texas A&M. Is that what
Yes.
it is now? And I'm old school, so I want to call it West Texas State. Played in the Canadian Football League. He's also had some time with some NFL teams. So we're really pleased to have those three in, and then we're also inducting posthumously. Thomas Jackson, who was a sprinter for Bellville back in the early 1970s, and and he's very deserving. He was a state, I think, second in the state one year, and the 200, very good in the 100 as well. So I think we've got a really good group coming in this year.
And if anybody knows the family of Thomas Jackson, contact you at the Bellville Times.
Get a hold of one of us.
or call me,
catch me at
text
the
me.
Bellville Times, and we want to make sure that he gets the recognition he deserves as well.
I knew Thomas Jackson well. He's not only a sprinter, but he was a heck of a football player
Yes.
as well. And had, in those days, gosh, I'm going to date myself, you measured speed in the hundreds, and he ran, I think, about a 9.7 maybe.
100-yard dash.
On the 100-yard dash, you didn't, 40 speeds weren't the way you measured your backs.
That's not how you measure mine either.
Yeah. Well, in my case, 40, no, we won't even go there.
But him and I believe Sammy Dursky from Sealy had some really good
up.
battles in the 100 and the 220 back then.
Yeah.
Oh, Nick Mosley had some battles with, I think, Palmer from Sealy. I grew up watching Mosley and Runnels run the ball, and I think Mosley was the first person I ever saw dunk a basketball, growing up.
And he did it very regularly for Bellville. We're not used to that anymore, but he was just a phenomenal talent for Bellville.
Yeah.
And and of course he went on to U of H. He's had a really nice professional career over in Germany, and he's retiring now. So, but really going to be good. He's going to try to get back for it. So it's going to be great to see those guys, all of them.
And
again-
Louis was like an NFL running back running against high school
Yeah.
guys.
Oh, he was a punishing runner. He would have fit in so well with his
With his
team.
team.
He was punishing.
And thanks to what y'all do, that's not I'm sure that's a selfless task. And plenty of people want to give you help after your selections, right? I'm sure.
That's why we put John on.
Yeah, there you go. But sincerely, thank you for that, because it's a lot of towns don't do that, don't take time to do that, and we should.
Well, we have a great committee. We really do, and everybody works hard, and we go over the names, and we have our list, and we go through them, and it's not always an easy decision, but we tend to come to an agreement, don't we?
Yes.
We do.
Well,
Yes,
and
we do.
unfortunately, John didn't make it this year, but that doesn't mean he can't be reconsidered at a later date, right?
Still on the list.
Still on the list.
Well, we've talked about 2023 fall, but we're going to end up here with the new realignment
Okay.
that's coming up here for 2024 to 2026, as Bruce and I talked about earlier, coming in new districts that we have, as Texas does this every year in every classification. Bellville is going to be in Region 3, District 11. Bellville, Caldwell, Giddings, LaGrange, Madisonville, and Sealy. Going back to some of the old teams that were there years ago, Madisonville's coming in there, of which we've had our battles with them the past few
Yes.
years. But that will be the new football district in 4A, Division 2, Region 3, District 11. There's 4 districts in Region 3. District 9 still has Silsbee, Jasper, West Orange, Stark, all those in there. So we're still going to see those types of guys. And then the District 12 is up in the Waco area.
That's who will
And
be
that'll be
playing
our
in the first
bi-district
round.
match.
That'll be the
matchup.
bi-district matchups on that. There are different districts for the other sports besides football, and volleyball is one. going to be pretty much the same district. Bellville, Caldwell, Giddings, LaGrange, Navasota, and Smithfield will replace Madisonville and Sealy on the football side.
Isn't that odd, though,
Sealy-
that
Yeah.
they would do that?
Yeah, I won't understand.
It makes no sense to me.
And that will be in Region 3, District 22. Region 3 has like 8 districts in it, I think.
Because it's not broken down like football.
Right. It's not broken down in one and 2, and that is a very large region on there. If you look, you can go look at that, but I didn't print that out. But those are going to be the new districts for next year, guys. So we're going to have some different road trips. I know they're trying to set the football schedule for next year. I don't think it's come out, the official one yet, but we will be playing in football. We will be playing those 5 teams. I know Hitchcock is one of them they have announced, and that's the only one that I know of that we will be playing next year, unless you know of any more.
I think, everything else is pretty unofficial right now,
Yeah.
but it'll hopefully by Monday they'll be ready to
Yeah.
say something.
All right, and we'll put that out on our social media whenever Coach Rowe and them post it. So, as always, we want to thank everyone for watching and listening to BellvilleSports.com during the year. We did quite a few broadcasts during the year. We've been doing some basketball. We did a soccer game the other night. We're coming up. We're going to do another soccer game. Softball and baseball are coming up. We're still looking to see if we can do some softball games. We lost all our broadcast people from
Crew,
last
yeah.
year, so
You're going to have to train some new
have
ones.
to find some new ones for that. But baseball will be starting up in March on there.
Well, and I want to just tell your listeners out there, these guys work really hard with what they do. I've watched them. I get a little kick out of watching them set up in the, at the football games and things, because there's always something going on behind the scenes that people don't know about, and sometimes you don't need to know about it. But they get it. They get it figured out, and they get it on, and they do a great job. And we're blessed to have them in our community. I thank y'all for all that y'all do as well. It's y'all been really, really good, and I know there are a lot of people that can't make it to the games. I know you want them to go to the games, but there's a lot of people that can't, for various reasons. And in the olden days, they're just out of luck till the newspaper came out. Now they can follow along, and y'all do a good job of keeping them informed. So y'all keep up that good work.
It's fun. Thank you. All right. Well, we're going to be tune in, keep in touch with BellvilleSports.com when we get possibly our next few games that we're going to do, and then before football season starts, we'll have a football preseason show where we'll give our expert opinions on how the season's going to be.
It will be just as wrong.
We're consistent, Dan.
Yeah, consistently wrong, but it's fun to talk about.
Well, all right. Well, I want to thank Josh Brost, Dan Mers, John Marcinkevich, Bruce White from the Belleville Times, Greg Braun. I'm Stephen Jackson. We're going to wrap up our 2023 fall sports review, not a preview, but congratulations to the Bremen Nets on their great season, and the Bremens for going all the way to the state championship.
It's been great.
It's been great, and we thank you very much. And John, you want to end it up?
Go Bellville.